or your family member's life for granted, because you'll never know when is the last time that you'll speak to them or that you'll hear from them ever again. He took somebody that I think I really need in my life.
I don't care what I have to do. I want to be there for them girls for the rest of their lives. Because Dee was just that type of person. I know she'll do it for mine. I know she will. Yeah. She made sure them kids. She did everything for them kids.
You're not just following a crime story. This is a slow, painful record of collapse, not in a single moment, but over days, through every overlooked sign, every cry for help left unanswered. Her name was Delicia Evans, a mother of two, a young entrepreneur living in Princeton, Texas. With bright eyes and a smile that never left her social media, Delicia embodied resilience, running 2 finance companies, expanding into transportation, raising her children on her own, and still finding time to dream of opening her own soul food restaurant. Her life was proof that you could be both a devoted mother and an independent woman until everything was taken from her on what seemed like just another ordinary morning. On the 5th of October, 2024, as sunlight broke through the windshield of her SUV, Delicia, like every other morning, was driving her children to school. But just minutes later, her car was forced to a stop by a red Range Rover. She had no way of knowing that inside that vehicle was the man she once loved, once forgave, once tried so hard to leave, and he would be the one to bring her journey to a brutal end. This case is not only heartbreaking because of how it happened, but because it had been warned. There were videos, witness statements, screams echoing from surveillance footage, yet all of it was brushed aside, as if the voice of a woman simply wasn't loud enough to be heard. And that's why this story must be told. For Delicia, for those still living in silence and fear, and for the truth that not everyone is lucky enough to have one more tomorrow. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, stay with me until the very end. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me as we uncover more haunting, heartbreaking cases, and leave a comment to let me know where you're watching from. Delicia Evans was no stranger to hardship. Born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, she knew exactly what it meant to rise from nothing. She once told her friends, "I won't let my circumstances decide my life." And true to her word, after moving to Princeton, Texas, Delicia began rebuilding everything from scratch. She wasn't just a mother, she was a provider. Raising 2 young daughters on her own, Delicia successfully ran 2 financial businesses, D's Tax and Financial Services and Royalty Financial Services. She also stepped into the transportation industry, purchasing her first semi-truck under the brand Royalty Transportation. And she had plans to open a soul food and seafood restaurant, the kind of food she loved most and cooked best. Delicia never hid the joy she felt as a mother. The photos she shared on social media were always filled with smiles, from park outings with her daughters to quick weekend getaways, or simply the 3 of them snuggled together on the couch. To her friends, she was an inspiration. To her family, a pillar of strength. And to her children, she was their entire world. In November 2023, Delicia met Ryan Phillips. Their connection didn't begin through social media or dating apps. It started through a mutual friend. At the time, Ryan was living in the same area and came across as calm, mature, and put together. He said he had just come out of a long period of medical treatment and was trying to rebuild his life. He seemed caring, kind, and didn't hesitate to offer financial help when he saw how hard she worked, juggling motherhood and running a business on her own. Delicia wasn't someone who fell easily, but those close to her said Ryan showed up at just the right moment after she had gone through some personal struggles and needed someone to lean on. Their relationship developed quickly. Ryan appeared to care deeply for the children, often bringing them gifts and joining in on family dinners. To outsiders, they looked like a picture-perfect couple, the quiet, steady man beside the driven, vibrant woman. But that was only the surface. Very few people knew that Ryan carried a troubled past. There was almost no trace of him on social media. And if anyone had looked deeper, they might have found it. A criminal record, past arrests, and a history tied to violent behavior. But when it comes to love, people often choose to believe in the good. And Delicia, someone who always believed everyone deserved a chance to change, chose to trust him. That choice would later become what many mourned the most, not because she was naive, but because she had everything: a career, her children, relentless strength, and she gave a chance to the wrong person. From there, the story began to unravel. No one knows exactly when Delicia began to feel uneasy. She was the kind of person who smiled through the storm, who carried herself with strength even when chaos brewed inside. But those who truly paid attention, they noticed. Ryan began having sudden bursts of anger. What he called just losing his temper started with raised voices, then escalated to clenching his fists too tightly, slamming doors, pounding tables, and eventually smashing things inside the house. One time, he shattered the living room window simply because Delicia came home 15 minutes later than promised. When confronted, he said he was under pressure, and Delicia, like so many women trying to hold a family together, chose to be understanding. From that point on, Delicia began to change. She posted fewer family photos, and her updates became more private, set to friends, or even only me. In one brief status, she wrote just 5 words: strong, but still human. One of her close friends recalled visiting her at home and noticing Delicia wearing sunglasses indoors. When asked about it, she just gave a half-hearted smile and said, "Woke up with a swollen eye, that's all." But her friend knew no one wakes up with that kind of swelling. Delicia's children also began to act differently around Ryan. Her older daughter would glance at her with worry whenever he entered the room. The younger one grew unusually quiet. Delicia knew something wasn't right, but part of her still wanted to believe it was just a phase, that if she stayed patient a little longer, things would get better. She began limiting visitors, rarely joining gatherings like she used to. When invited out, she often declined with excuses like too busy, feeling tired, or saving the weekend for family. But in truth, she was slowly isolating herself from the very people who might have pulled her out of a dangerous relationship. And then, as if guided by instincts honed through hardship, Delicia installed security cameras inside her home. No one knew exactly when she did it, maybe after a particularly heated argument, or perhaps after her daughter broke down in tears in the bedroom. But one thing was clear: she no longer felt safe in her own space. At that point, no one could have imagined that those very cameras would later become the clearest evidence of a tragedy in the making. And yet, no one intervened in time. Not because they didn't care, but because Delicia, like so many women who've endured emotional abuse, had grown far too used to carrying the weight alone. There's a bitter truth. Many tragedies don't begin with a punch. They begin with a glare. A slammed fist on a table. A phone call that gets monitored. A look that makes you feel like you need permission just to breathe. And slowly, those little things build until they become disaster. For Delicia, the early months of 2024 marked the moment when tension began accelerating, when the things she had once endured in silence started to cross every boundary. One night, Ryan exploded simply because Delicia had left her phone on silent. She hadn't replied right away to a message, "Where are you?" That rage spiraled into a night filled with shouting. A bedroom door kicked open, and her older daughter clutching her little sister as they hid inside a closet. Another time, Ryan tore apart an envelope on the kitchen counter, convinced it was separation papers. In reality, it was just an insurance contract for her business. That moment crystallized a terrifying truth for Delicia. She was living with someone who could lose control at any moment. And the most frightening part? No one on the outside knew what was really happening.
I don't remember everybody. I don't have the same social media platforms where I can go back and look at old inboxes and DMs to remember like, oh, this so-and-so, this so-and-so. I don't have that. Y'all have to say something to me and refresh my memory. My bad.
Okay, let's go.
After several explosive arguments, she finally went to the police station and reported everything. She spoke clearly. Threats, being confined in her own home, being monitored, but all of it was filed away as just a statement. No urgent legal action followed. No restraining order. No real protection. She installed another security camera inside the apartment. A small, palm-sized device tucked behind the bookshelf, aimed at the living room. That camera would later capture one of the most heartbreaking moments: Ryan grabbing Delicia's arm, forcing her down into a chair, shouting inches from her face right in front of the children, and raising his hand as if to strike. He stopped midway, but that pause didn't make things any less terrifying. It only proved one thing. He knew he was being watched. Delicia was done staying silent. She uploaded that video to Facebook, with a caption that read, "This is what he does to me. Yet I'm always the one seen as overreacting." The post spread quickly within her local community. Friends, acquaintances, even a few strangers left sympathetic comments. But the law remained still. When the police arrived, they merely documented it as a domestic disturbance. And then what made everything even heavier was that in late September 2024, Ryan was arrested for another assault incident at home. But because the charges were categorized as minor, he wasn't held for long. Even when Delicia's family presented the video, gave statements, and emphasized the danger, the authorities still let Ryan go. On the 4th of October, Ryan was released. That night, Delicia wrote one final post on Facebook. "I was born a Hudson. I am strong. I am smart. I got out once and I won't give him a second chance." No one knew it would be her last post. The morning of the 5th of October, 2024, Texas felt calmer than usual. The air was fresh after a light rain the night before. Delicia woke up early, got her daughters out of bed, made breakfast, packed their school bags, everything unfolding like any ordinary morning in the life of a mother. After dropping her youngest off at preschool, Delicia didn't return home right away. But no one knew where she went. Her best friend, someone who was used to getting messages from her every hour, suddenly noticed the silence. A long, unsettling pause stretched into noon. She called. No answer. She texted. No reply. This wasn't like Delicia at all, the woman who always sent, "just got home," or "picked up the kids." That absence of routine felt like a warning, a gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. By late afternoon, her friends started calling around. No one had seen Delicia since that morning. Alarmed, she rushed over to Delicia's house, only to find the door shut tight. No one answered when she knocked. The lights inside were still on. Delicia's car was gone from the driveway. A chill crept down her spine. At 5:30 p.m., she made it official. She called 911 and reported Delicia missing. The next morning, the 6th of October, another emergency call came in. Delicia's house was on fire. By the time firefighters arrived, most of the first floor had already been engulfed in flames. Investigators detected the scent of accelerants, signs that the fire had likely been set on purpose. More disturbing, no one was inside, no vehicle in the garage. Delicia and her silver SUV were still missing without a trace. That same morning, police issued a high-level critical missing person alert. Alongside it, they named their primary suspect, Ryan Phillips, the ex-boyfriend, previously accused multiple times of controlling and threatening behavior. Using license plate tracking technology, authorities quickly traced the SUV. It had left Texas and was now heading toward Missouri. By the evening of the 6th of October, an automatic license plate reader in St. Louis County flagged the suspicious vehicle. Police quickly moved into position, but when they signaled the driver to stop, he refused, hitting the gas instead, triggering a high-speed chase that tore through multiple streets. Nearby residents reported the sound of screeching tires and sirens blaring. Witnesses said they saw the SUV flying down the road, crashing into a median, and flipping over on South Rock Hill. The moment the SUV flipped, several witnesses reported hearing a series of loud bangs like explosions. Police approached the overturned vehicle with shields raised. One neighbor recalled, "I saw them draw their weapons, then I heard yelling commands to drop the weapon. Everything happened so fast." When officers opened the vehicle door, they found two individuals inside, both unresponsive. Ryan Phillips, the driver, and Delicia Evans, discovered in the back of the SUV, already deceased. Preliminary findings suggest that Delicia may have died before being placed in the car, and Ryan had kept her body with him throughout the entire journey from Texas to Missouri. When cornered, Ryan is believed to have inflicted a fatal wound on himself.
Onto South Elm Avenue and continued to South Rock Hill Road, where neighbors said they saw a gun lying on the ground next to the car after the suspect fired at police. Motor heard 10 to 15 shots and saw a car flipped over.
Heard the gunshots.
The end of the chase did not mark the end of the nightmare for Delicia's loved ones. The two children, just dropped off at school by their mother the morning before, now sat silently clinging to each other in a police waiting room. A bleak ending to a survival fight Delicia had struggled through. She wore a bulletproof vest. She reported him to the police. She warned her friends, "If I go offline too long, come looking." But in the end, it was the system and its delay that allowed things to go too far. News of the high-speed chase ending in a horrifying crash in St. Louis County quickly spread across local media. But it wasn't until the woman was identified as Delicia Evans that the story truly sent shockwaves through the community. On social media, photos of Delicia with her two daughters spread rapidly. From former neighbors in Princeton to college friends and women's safety advocates, voices rose in unison. "We saw the signs. We knew she was in danger. But every warning seems to have come too late." In the days following the incident, Delicia's family flew to Missouri to bring her body back to Texas. Police provided escort and protection for her two daughters, children who had not only lost their mother, but now faced emotional scars that could last a lifetime. Both were placed under emergency psychological care, with doctors and social workers on standby around the clock. Delicia's best friend, the first person to report her missing, shared in an interview, "I don't forgive the system. We begged for help, again and again. Someone had heard him threaten to end her life. There was evidence, there were reports, but no one acted fast enough."
Her was just amazing. Like, can't nobody say nothing bad about her. She was a very friendly, happy person. She has a big heart, and she fell for that. He willed her back in by him guilt-tripping her with the cancer.
Delicia's home in Princeton, Texas, once a safe haven for her and her two daughters, now stood as a charred skeleton of blackened beams and broken walls. The fire hadn't just destroyed her belongings, it had erased every hope of rebuilding the life she had fought so hard to create after leaving Ryan behind. A memorial fund was established to support Delicia's two daughters, receiving thousands of donations from people across the country. Meanwhile, several journalists began digging deeper into Ryan Phillips's history of violence, raising chilling questions. EY was a man with multiple prior allegations, still allowed unrestricted access to his victim. Why did law enforcement only act after Delicia went missing instead of when she was alive, pleading for protection? The silence, now, had come too late to save her. But for many, this case became a brutal wake-up call, a reminder that unless the system changes, more women like Delicia will be left with no chance to survive. As soon as the victim's identity was confirmed in the aftermath of the crash, law enforcement in both Texas and Missouri formally closed the missing person report for Delicia Evans and opened a homicide investigation. Evidence collected across multiple states and over several days began to converge into a chilling portrait. Ryan Phillips' actions were not spontaneous. They were deliberate, calculated, pre-planned with deadly intent. The crime scene investigation at Delicia's burned home in Princeton revealed clear signs of arson. The stench of gasoline still clung to the scorched tiles. Among the remnants, investigators found a partially charred body, initially unidentifiable, later confirmed to be Ryan Phillips, the man who lost his life in the crash during the police chase. At the crash scene in St. Louis, police recovered a firearm believed to have been used in the killing. Beneath the driver's seat, investigators found dried bloodstains, later confirmed through DNA analysis to belong to Delicia. Location data from Ryan's phone, previously erased but successfully recovered, revealed a disturbing pattern. For 2 days after Delicia vanished, he moved constantly without notifying anyone, including a stop at a gas station near her home. At a press conference held in mid-October 2024, police announced, "We believe Ryan Phillips fatally harmed the victim at her residence in the early morning hours of the 5th of October, then set fire to the house to destroy evidence, transported her body across state lines in a rental SUV, and later died following a high-speed police pursuit in Missouri. There would be no trial, no sentencing, because the one who should have been held accountable was already dead before he could face justice. For Delicia's family, that could never be called justice. Her loved ones shared, "We didn't want him to simply die in a crash. We wanted him to stand trial, to face what he did, and to hear Delicia's name spoken in the name of justice." The truth had come to light. But no punishment could ever be enough, not when the victim wasn't alive to be protected. The case was closed, but its echoes have never faded. Delicia Evans tried to do everything right. She spoke up, she recorded evidence, she filed police reports, she wore a bulletproof vest, she left the abusive relationship, she protected her children, she asked for help, and still, she didn't survive. She didn't die the moment a bullet pierced her skull. She died slowly through every ignored plea for help, through every police report written and forgotten, through every time she watched the man who hurt her walk free, laughing, untouched by the law. Ryan Phillips wasn't just a toxic individual. He was the product of a system that allowed men like him to exist, to be forgiven, excused, handled internally every time they crossed a line, until the final line was the life of a young mother. Delicia once wrote, "I escaped once and I won't let him get a second chance." But it was this society, this justice system, that gave him a second chance, then a third, and finally, the chance to end her life. Don't say Delicia wasn't strong. She fought with everything she had, but no woman can win alone when the entire system chooses to look away. If you're in a dangerous relationship, don't wait until it's too late. If you see someone being abused, don't stay silent. If you're a police officer, a lawyer, a prosecutor, your decisions could save a life. Delicia didn't need pity. She needed change. And if her death ends up saving someone else, then at the very least, this pain won't be for nothing.
Love is not obsession.
Love is not controlling.
3 of Delicia's dearest friends, Michaela, Irika, and Salome, told me Sunday she leaves behind 2 young, heartbroken daughters.
She made sure them kids. She did everything for them kids. I don't care what I have to do. I want to be there for them girls for the rest of their lives. Because Didi was just that type of person. I know she'll do it for mine. I know she will.
If this story struck a chord in your heart, please share it. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can uncover more chilling, heartbreaking cases together, and leave a comment to let me know where you're watching from. Because maybe just one share from you could help save someone out there.